We want to thank you for joining us once again for 1x1. I'm Rob.
And I'm Sue.
And we are the Parkers. So, Sue, what is our non-sponsor sponsor for the day?
Our non-sponsored sponsor for the day is the succulent plant.
Succulent plant. Granted,
this is a fake one, so we can't even really say that we're owning anything with it, but the succulent plant is the new plant.
It's the new plant.
What did someone say to you this week about it?
Yes. So here's what the saying is. Pets are the new kids and plants are the new pets.
So the succulent has become a very popular plant because it doesn't require a lot of work.
Yes.
You can like give it water once a week.
Yep.
Maybe. But I did learn some new things about. I had these 2 little succulents that I'm going to repot.
Repot them.
Look at me, repot.
Yep, repotting.
And because I can't kill succulents usually. They're
very
good.
hard to.
It's hard to. And I learned some things new. They need like a little bit of water, and it's from the bottom, and you have to have so.
Yep. And here's something about succulents: you want to spray them. You want to spray them.
Spray them.
You don't want to drown them. You want to give them a little spray. So I have a few succulents in my office. We gave them out on Mother's Day at church, and because we had so many left over, Megan, our assistant, put together a nice little succulent makeup and put it.
So I'm going to attempt to do that at home.
Yes. Good. All right. So we're heading into the summer. It's June. And if you live in the Midwest, you are already beginning summer. But here in the Northeast, summer really doesn't begin till like June 24th when school is all out. So there's still about 3 more weeks of school. But as I was really thinking about like what we were going to talk about this week, I really thought about something we should talk about is transition. So the Byrds back in the 60s sang a song, Turn, Turn, Turn. They got it from Ecclesiastes chapter 3. To every season, turn, turn, turn. There's a season for everything under heaven. There's a season for life, a time for death, a time for growth, a time to die, a time to laugh,
joy,
a time
weeping.
to mourn. And so there are seasons in our life. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're not talking about marital transitions. We're talking about relational and life transitions, because there are stages in marriage where it would be like the 7-year, the 15-year mark, the 20-year mark. But I really want to talk more about just the transitions of life more than the specific years of what we'll do at another segment, because that'll be a really good marriage focused only one. But as I'm thinking about it, even this morning, there were some families that didn't come to church because they had graduation parties. And so I want us to talk about transitions that we have really seen in our life, and then how have we handled them? Because some of them we've handled really, really well, and others we didn't handle them so well. So let's do this. Let's talk about some of the major transitions that we have had as a couple and as parents. And we're not talking about years like year 7, year 10, year 20. Let's just talk about those big transitional times that we have had. So for me, the first one was getting married, just living with someone.
Wait, can we just push it back for a minute? Because I just thought of one as you were saying that. I think dating to engagement was a transition.
I know, but we dated for like, we really didn't date.
But let's think about other couples I know.
Okay.
Because once you put the ring on it, you are committed to the next purpose. So I think that is a big transition.
Okay,
just
good.
kind of pre.
Good, but we didn't ever really dated. We would quote unquote, maybe we courted. I don't know what we did. Yeah,
it was kind of quick.
7 weeks, 6 days, we got engaged, right?
Okay.
A couple major intense conversations. Next thing you know, we're in love, we're engaged, we're getting married. So for me was the first big transition that I really felt was after our first year of marriage. And I may have shared this before, where you're like, tell me what your favorite part of being married this first year was. And she really expected me to say just how much more beautiful you are, how much more amazing you are. And what did I say? Let's see if you remember.
You said, I realized just how selfish I am.
Meaning me, not her.
Yeah, him.
Yes. So I said, I realize how selfish I am. And I'll be honest with you, as a follower of Christ, that was really important for me to realize, because I'm in ministry. I've given up my vocation to do the things that God wants. And I'm thinking, how selfish can I be? Well, I have a lot of selfish stuff in me. So that was a big transition for me. What was like your first big transition that you would say?
It's funny because marriage wasn't, I mean, sure, there were changes, but I didn't find it much. I love to serve, to nurture, to take care of you.
She's better than me.
So, no, that's not.
Kind of what you're saying.
Anyway, not at all. So marriage wasn't hard. We did have a child right away. I will say having a baby rocked me. I thought I was so prepared to be a parent. I love children. I love babies. I've always been the baby whisperer, I felt like. But our baby, I couldn't be the whisperer for. He was colicky, as he used to call it. He cried all the time. And that was a real transition for me, having an infant. And now this person is so reliant on me really only. And I felt like I kind of lost myself in the beginning there. I wasn't sure what the new me was going to look like.
Yeah. Good. For me, having a baby, I don't think it was the first one wasn't that hard. I think the hardest transition for me was, and it sounds so selfish, right? Selfishness was my lack of sleep, right? I just
totally. Rob needs.
I don't function.
Yeah,
I don't need a lot of sleep,
than I do.
but I don't function well with the right amount of sleep.
And we had babies that didn't sleep.
Okay, good. So for me, it was really that first year of marriage. Mm-hmm. For you, it was having
the first child.
Okay. Another big transition for me was when we came to a season that we knew that I was going to have a vocational change and we were going to pick up and move somewhere else. That was a big moment. And we're going to get back to why that was a big moment, but I want to kind of just walk through our big transitional times. But that was a big thing, knowing that for the first time, I wasn't just making a change, meaning moving away, because I moved around a lot when I was in my late teens, early 20s. I moved multiple times to different states, but having to transition to make such a big decision, because I literally changed my vocation and picking up my wife and 2 kids to have to make that transition. That was a really, really hard one for me. It was a right one, but it was a hard one. Mm-hmm. So what was another transition?
Just to piggyback off that, that was hard for me, but for many different reasons. It was hard for me because I think then I realized that was my eye-opening time where I'm selfish, because I really didn't care that he was needing a change and unhappy where he was. I was thinking only of myself. I have 2 children under 3 years old. How in the world am I going to move out of state near not one person we know and function with no sleep while you're in this high place where you're happy and content in your life? But I was having to take a step back and say, I'm not content. So that was a really big transition for me as well. Yeah. I think that's a safe thing to say. But like a next transition would be, I mean, there's so many transitions with our kids, but you know, you go through a season with your kids where they're all like elementary school and everything's kind of the same. So nothing really changed. It would probably be going back to work generally, right? Just going back to work after being home. Yeah. I worked part-time always, but going into a more regular schedule, that was hard because I had that a little bit of mom guilt, I think. You know, we were talking recently, I might have shared this already with Luke about what he remembers from his childhood. And when he was 2, I went back and worked 1 full day and then weekends and stuff like that. And he remembers I was with him every other day. And what he remembers from his childhood is lunch dates with dad after preschool on Fridays. That's all he remembers.
Nellie's Pizza.
Nothing else.
Nellie's Pizza.
And that was like a real guilt
waffle
for
fries me. And chicken fingers.
That was what he would get every week.
Should I stop?
Yeah, that would be a wound right now you're giving me.
Sorry.
So that was really hard for me because when he said that, I'm like, what am I doing? Where is my priorities here? You know, I wanted to work, needed to work, but this was hurting me. Yep. You know, so that was a big transition, learning how to still function at a high capacity as a nurse, a high capacity as a wife, and a high capacity as a mother.
Yep.
And that was really hard.
Good. I would think a next big transition for us, there really came a point where like the transitions were so much about me and you. And then for the next many years, it really involved our kids. So for me, the next transition, which I enjoyed, was when all our kids went to school full time. Mm. And knowing that like between 8 and 3, they were all in a school setting, knowing that you were working, I was working, and trying to juggle.
So no more lunch dates for you.
Yeah. No, and again, I loved my lunch dates with Lukey. They were awesome. But it was one of those things that it was really hard. Like it was a good transition because I'm like, wow, everyone's doing what they're doing. They're growing up. They're maturing. Now I have to learn how to like shift my schedule, shift our schedule, and how to like not get caught up so much in work that I miss what's really going on. Mm.
And equally, that's a great point to piggyback off that. For me, it was when, full day school, like just to kind of, it was no more like the half day pickups and everything. And it was full day school. But it's funny, there was another moment through that time that really hit it for me. You're going to laugh because this is so ridiculous. When all our kids could swallow pills. Like, why would that? But that was a moment where I was like, wow, they're getting big. Because Luke started very young, learning to swallow pills. But it was something ridiculous, like a vitamin or this or that. But I was like, oh, wow, like we're in another phase now. Like reading the bottles, we didn't have to do the liquid conversion anymore for 2 to 11. We could go, so silly. But for me, it was monumental thinking we're entering a new stage of life.
Yeah.
Kids old enough to do big person stuff.
Yeah. And I think that was true with junior high, like the transition of junior high where our kids just did too many. And we were good with activities. Kids were not allowed to do multiple activities a season.
Right.
Because we had 4. And I see that with a lot of parents. They may have 2 kids, but their kids are all doing like 3 or 4 activities at once. We said like 1, maybe 2, but we really kept it at 1 knowing we had 4 kids. So we went through years of trying to juggle like softball, basketball, track, all at the same time. And it was just
soccer.
Insane. Yeah. So junior high was big, which kind of bled into high school.
Yeah.
But it was like this new crazy rhythm.
And with that, when we were able to finally start going to events together.
Yeah.
Too often we were separate. You'd go to this game, you'd go here. That was a big thing. Tend to go off that. Yeah.
Good. What's another transition?
So then you go on and you have your kids getting older. And honestly, for me, the next big thing, I could get emotional thinking about it, is high school graduation. In all honesty, that is when your first graduates high school, it will never be the same. Your family now has changed forever because they come back. We know that, but it's different. And that was a really big deal because I knew at that point my years of mothering were going to drastically be different.
Yeah. Don't you love Sue? Don't you love Sue? I love this about you.
I mean, when we dropped off Brandon at college, granted, he was very homesick, but I never felt so empty in my life.
Yeah. I love that about you. I love it because it's so real. None of this is scripted. It just hits you.
It was tough.
I think my next big transition was not only college, but when multiple kids were going to college. And that was a huge transition. Yeah. Huge transition with Becky going to college. And that was a big one. What's another one?
When the sports ended. Now we still have Luke, but
we have one left.
But it was I remember like basketball season for Ben, when that ended, knowing he wasn't going to continue his career, that was hard.
Yeah.
Another moment where you knew that this was another end of something.
Yeah. I think another transition are the difficulties. Like there's 2 of them. When we really found out what was going on with not only Brandon, but Ben with their eyes. And not only those 2, but Becky with her back. And there was 3 transitions for our children that they had pretty severe medical issues. And there came a point where we just kind of forced our way through, like finding out what was wrong with them. And not only finding out what was wrong with them, but like how to even get in the rhythm. Like, this is the new normal. This is the new normal. We will be going to eye doctors the rest of our life in some capacity, or at least guiding and assisting them through that. And I just remember at one point, I didn't want to live in the reality of it, but something really shifted where I'm like, until God heals, which I believe, this is the norm. And I have to embrace this better. Because I used to leave remember we used to drive to the doctors and I'd be like all geared up. I'd be listening to music. I wouldn't be talking. And I just wanted to get there and hear that there was a miracle. And when it wouldn't happen, I would leave so disenchanted. And I had to come to a point like, this is the new normal until. That was a hard transition for me. And the second with that was COVID. And so I think a big thing is seeing the transitions and really the crisis moments of transition. That was a real big one where, and I know they're different, but there was this whole idea of that complexity of not knowing what's going on in the moment.
Yeah.
What about you? Is there another one?
I think Becky getting married, that was another whole big transition. I remember when they got engaged, and I put myself back into that, like that day you get engaged, and now they're a they.
They're a they.
And now you're...
They're a they as them together.
Right.
They're a they as them together.
And
yes. Let me say that again. They are a they because them
Right.
being together. Not that they are they singular, but they are they.
They were
them
they
together.
joined as a couple.
Yes.
And I think I remember that night when they got engaged and we sat down, the four of us, when the night was over of celebrating.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking that next stage, because now at that point, we've done 2 college graduations and that was big, but I remember thinking, wow, this is real.
This is real.
This is real. We'll never be her parents the same way ever again. She has a man to take care of her who loves her deeply. So that was really big. That was a beautiful time. And I really, it was through COVID. So that kind of, for us, COVID was a lot of wedding planning, disaster stuff. But I remember after the wedding that night, first of all, we were just so tired because middle-aged people just dancing their heart out for hours is just so exhausting.
It doesn't have to be.
Okay, but it was. But I remember the next day having...
True, my body hurt for 2 weeks.
Yes, our body hurt for 2 weeks.
I went to the chiropractor 12 times in 2 weeks.
Every muscle hurt.
My body was hurting.
My calves hurt from jumping so much.
But I was told that my dancing got better. That there was this kind of anointing going on with my dance moves.
Must have been.
Okay.
It was good. It was a good night. But I do remember the day after, besides the physical, and we could joke about that, although it was real, the physical.
Yeah.
That was a new feeling.
Yeah.
It was the first time that
it was fulfilling but empty at the same time.
Yes, for the first time, she was away and she didn't call me to let me know that she was safely there.
Yeah.
Because she was with her husband. So it was just a real different time.
Yeah, but in fairness, Becky went to Tajikistan and we didn't hear from her for a couple of days either. So
true.
In fairness,
but
and we love our
it was
Becky.
different.
It was
just different.
It was different knowing that when she went to Tajikistan, she had to call us at some point. Being married,
it's almost like no backseas.
Yeah.
We were the person that always had to feel, but now it's almost like it's his. He has to worry where his wife is.
He's responsible.
Except when he calls us that night and says, "Have you heard from Becky?" But we'll go on that another day.
Yeah, we should do one about her wedding ceremony. We'll do a podcast about that. That was a special day. That was a special day. I could cry thinking about that. So let's talk about this. I want to kind of put a bookshelves in between. What did you, when you look back on these transitions, what are things that you learned, or things you learned or wish you would have done different?
So I think I've learned that transitions are good. They're healthy, they're good, they're normal, they're supposed to happen. You can't just stay the same because there's no growth, right? So I think that I've learned and come to love transitions. I wish I loved them during it.
Yeah.
Because during it, I think I often got too caught up in the emotion of it and I missed just the growth and the blessing that came during those times.
Yeah. I realized that during transitions, I bulldoze. I don't want to use the word bully because that wouldn't be fair, but I bulldoze. I drive us to get to the point, and it caused a lot of damage for us. I remember when we were going through our my biggest transition with you was when we were making the decision to leave one vocation for another. And I just expected you to go with me. I expected that there'd be no pushback. I expected that because it seemed like you knew me so well and you loved me so much that you're like, hey, let's try it. Let's go on an adventure of a lifetime. And that was not at all the case. In fairness, it was not. It was the complete opposite. And so my thought was, I'm going to bulldoze us to get there, and then she will see that this was the right decision. Now, it was the right decision, but there was a lot of repercussion because of it. There was a lot of fighting. There was a lot of emotion. There was a lot of having to rebuild trust.
Yep.
You had to rebuild your trust for me just because I was going to plow over you to get to the place. And I regret that. I regret that.
That's good.
What's another thing?
I think speaking to families right now who have younger kids or are thinking of having kids, anyone who's been married for a while or has older kids, you realize that those years, although chaotic, are such a beautiful time of transition and a time of just being able to really pour into your children who are going to be adults, right? That's the purpose of raising children, is to help them to in their process of growing up to be adults. So I think for me is I felt like I was so stressed most of the time because there were so many of them and no one was sleeping. And since he needed more sleep, he had to sleep, right? And since I was only working part-time, I took the hit and didn't sleep as much and don't need as much sleep. But I think I just went through to get through at times. Yeah. There will be times that he'll say, remember this? And I'll be like, no. Like, I feel like I just missed some things. And is another reason, as another transition is coming soon, as Luke now will go into his senior year next year. When I think about college with him being our last one, once again, it brings out an emotion I didn't even know was there, because I did have a lot of time with him. I spent a lot of time with him because he was the youngest and he was home longer. So, I think enjoy those years of chaos, because you're really, you're teaching your children how to function in chaos, number one, how to deal with stress, how to deal with chaotic situations, and you're really developing them into the adult they're going to be.
Yeah, I think for me, and this really goes back to us, is I think I'm really good at having other awareness better than I do of self-awareness. Meaning this, Luke's our one kid that wants to go far away to school, and you're really struggling with it. It's a battle. I mean, I'm literally playing referee, where I'm thinking like, what a great opportunity. And so I'm very sensitive to that. But when I'm going through my decision process, I don't have that sensitivity towards others or towards you. And so what has happened was, I remember kind of my little last side gig that we really worked through, just something that an opportunity presented itself. And I decided to stop doing it for what we were doing. And I thought I was doing something for us when really I didn't process it properly. And I became very frustrated and angry at you. And it caused sorrow. 20 years ago, I would have been mad at you and I would have been mad at myself. But I was sorrowful knowing that if I would have transition better through this, like I'm helping Luke with college and you with him, and kind of took a step back, I think we would have been in a healthier place when I went through that transition. And so I really think with transitions, the frustrating thing that I've learned is I'm so good at helping others transition, but I don't always do a good job with me transitioning for you. And I either A, don't want to tell you really how I'm feeling, or B, I just expect you to know what I'm already feeling. And that always ends in a 6 month to a year later hard conversation where it caused sorrow. Like this last decision that I made, I thought it was the right decision for us. It actually was the wrong decision. And I wasn't angry at you. I was sorrowful that I did not bring you more into the bigger conversation so we could have made a better decision with it.
And that's painful to hear, to be honest with you, because first of all, I never want to cause the love of my life any sorrow, you know what I mean? And if it gave you any sorrow, I apologize, obviously. But I think that to me is a reflection of my immaturity. And that's what is difficult, because that was a transition. And it almost goes back to the beginning of our marriage when you wanted to just pick us up and go far, far away. And I realized my selfishness well, what about me? Like, I don't want that. And I think that this was another example of selfishness in my life. Like we were moving fast and there was a lot of other pieces going on. And I'm like, why is he not thinking of my emotion here and just his own? But as in every relationship, and I really feel like in our marriage, this has been a true testament over the past 24 plus years, is that there are times in every marriage that there is going to be giving and taking. And I should have been able to read him more, because I do read you well, and be able to say, for his own growth in soul right now, he needs to continue doing this. Even though he's saying he's going to transition out for what's better for us, it wasn't going to ultimately be. And I think that's an important thing. It's to be able to like be self-aware of your emotions and of each other, self-aware of each other's needs.
Yeah. I think that we also have to realize there's in transitions, there's a celebration and a mourning. And one of the things that we do really well is we're very strong. But what happens is that oftentimes we don't do a very good job celebrating nor mourning the transition. And it always comes out 3 or 4 months later. And when you look at seasons, summer to fall, fall to winter, winter to spring, spring to summer, there is this in between when you're like, is it summer? Is it spring? Is it fall? Is it winter? And
especially if you live in New Jersey this year.
When you live in a place where you have 4 seasons, you get to really see that in-between stage. And I remember one time, even as a church, we were going through a big transition with one of our staff people leaving. And I'm just like, this is great. This is great. This will be good for them. We'll rebound well. And you remember that our friends were at our house and they just started crying. Like, I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what's going on. And all of a sudden the Holy Spirit said, they're mourning. They're mourning the loss of their other pastor. They're mourning the loss of people they were doing life with. And God really kind of woke me up saying, you have to not only in transitions, recognize transitions, that things will change, but there are seasons of transitions. There's a joy going into something new, but there's a mourning as one chapter is closing.
That's good, yeah.
And that's a hard place to be, especially for 2 strongly driven people that don't want to see other people ever hurt. Yes, we are strongly driven, but we never want to see anybody hurting. And so for us, it's almost like we convince ourselves, convince each other, convince others, like, we're good, we're good, we're good. And it's like, no, you have to mourn and you have to celebrate. And that's just something that I know that we have talked about that we need to do a better job of. You do a much better job than me, but I do know it's something that I need to do a better job.
Well, I think
personally.
we complement each other. You do a better job with the kids. You let them mourn. I don't like them to mourn. So you do better. And I think for us, I do better with that.
Yeah. And there's one other big transition. We're going back to the beginning where it's just us 2, which is going to be a fun transition. And we've already been practicing it. And I think one of the things is you have to practice transitions. Like for us, we go on more dates now than we ever have. We spend more time together than we ever have. And we've really created that space that we enjoy one another.
Because the youngest kid really raises himself, let's be honest.
Let's be honest. By the time you have 4, the youngest is on its own. Now, we're going to stop there because this could really lead into like the different stages of marriage. And I don't want to talk about that because that could be a whole nother episode. And we have more episodes to come. So let's just talk about some little takeaways for our listening audience. What's a takeaway?
I think when you're going through a transition, walk into it and don't shy away from it. Take the bull by the horns kind of thing. Like sometimes transitions are scary, but I guarantee you once you're in it, it's not as scary as what you were thinking it was going to be.
Okay, good. So she's saying
embrace it.
Embrace it.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to say enjoy it. So as you grab it by the horns, enjoy it. Recognize like a roller coaster ride. Click, 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 going up. And then you put your hands up and you zoom down. Like embrace that there's going to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. You're saying embrace it. I'm saying enjoy it. What's another one?
That's good. I think, like I said before, as you were saying, enjoy, like, yes, enjoy. Like during that time, figure out the new norm together. And what an opportunity as couples, right? That you're in this transition period, like to figure it out. Like we're preparing to be empty nesters, right? Yep. Now, although they will come home again at some point, after they graduate college, but generally we will be empty nesters in the next couple of years. We're preparing and we're learning how to enjoy that next stage. So I think preparation.
Good.
Preparation.
Get ready for it. I think another thing is, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted us to do this one, I think the last couple transitions we've handled best. I think you need to evaluate your transitions. I know we've done that with Becky. I know we've done that with COVID. And I also know that last job thing was pretty big for me. And I felt like I failed that decision. That was not a you, that was more of a me. And so I've been really evaluating transitions more than ever. And even looking to the future, evaluating transitions for the future.
That's good. Yeah. I think transitions, too often we look at them and we dread them. But honestly, like we have really grown to love transitions.
Yeah.
And I think it's taken a while, but newness is fun. It's exciting.
Yeah. And the reality is you're going to always have transitions.
Always.
You're going to always have transitions, and you should look forward to them. You should not want things to always stay the same. Last one that I want to say is the way you handle transitions is the way your kids will handle transitions. You have all these little eyes on you, from little kids to big kids. And the way that you handle transitions really positions your kids for how they will handle transitions. So good. This was actually a really good one. I really enjoyed this one. I mean, I always enjoy doing this with you, but I felt like this was really, really good, solid, even good for us to be able to process through like this. So remember, there is transitions. There is a season for everything under heaven. And this episode is called Turn, 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 the song by the Birds. So again, I'm Rob.
I'm Sue.
And we are the Parkers.
Have a great week, everyone.